I'm Catherine Sheeran, host of the podcast Horse Tales with Cat. My next guest is a rider, trainer, and farrier who hails from Armenia. He has represented the Armenian national team as a young rider, not only in three-day eventing, but also in show jumping and dressage. Andre Etmekdjian apprenticed as a farrier as an early teen while riding and landed in the States in 1997. He has worked as both a rider and farrier for American Norman Delajoyo and German legend Wilhelm Genn. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Thank you.
I always like to lead with, tell me a little bit about how you came to the sport. How did you find horses?
My father, he was a rider in his days, my days as well, but not competing my days. I don't remember my father competes. I remember my father as a trainer, as a farrier, as a veterinarian, as a leather worker, because that's what we do. Yes, and just animals, the horses especially. I had to really work hard in order for me to be able to come with my father to the barn, because on a regular basis, because since I am a product of Soviet Union, I have to say that I'm Armenian, but I'm from Azerbaijan. So it's a different republic, different country, different place. My father, because of a product of Soviet Union, we were not able to own the horses. So riding school belongs to government. As any other teaching school, like any other school in the country, either sport or education, it's a government organizations. So as you improve, graduate as a student, you become a part of the national team. Then we have 17 different nations, so you can say international, but for our national sport, it's very difficult to get to the top of the sport, because like I said, 17 different nations, the access to international competitions, there's so much. That's the one of the reasons my father would never really support my love to sport, because of the difficulties in the regions. We, like I said, we don't own the horses, and horses been taken away from us as easy as given to us. That's one of the main reasons, but it didn't happen. My love to the horses, to the sport, was stronger, so I'd be able to push through all the education that's been thrown at me by my family, my big family, my used to be in a big family. And as a 18-year-old in Soviet Union, everybody had to go to army. So I'd be able to do my junior years on the team of, as I mentioned earlier, all three disciplines. Started with dressage, progressing to show jumping, having the eventing in the middle. In fact, in one point with the same horse.
Wow.
National junior level, which requires intermediate dressage Grand Prix, meter 50, one round competition in show jumping. As a master degree in equestrian sport of Soviet Union, I went to Soviet Army as an 18-year-old. That was 1997. With help of my father, my preference, my wish would be Central Sport Club of Army, which holds every aspect of the sport. First echelon, that is the Army, sponsored by Army and the government. Obviously, horsepower, access to the top breeding factories, top trainers, access to Europe, and the rest of the world, that was my dream. But
Mhm.
wasn't enough. My dream wasn't enough, and my father be able to got me into cavalry,
Mm.
which is also with the horses. It's better than Afghanistan at the
Mm.
time,
Mhm.
much better than Afghanistan and everything else. It's mainly army activity. Plus, after the World War II, Soviet cavalry got been released and then got back together in 1960s for movie War and
Oh, okay.
and that's why Russian cavalry being sponsored 50% by Moscow Film and 50% by army. So we, as a part of the movie project, I've been in like maybe 10 or 15 movies and parades and exhibition competitions. Never really top echelon of competitions. Never really. Although show jumping, I in 1989, with the help of my father, I won our cavalry competition, yearly competition, which I had my picture on the wall with everybody else since 1960s. It was big honor, but like I said, with the help of my father, he came. It was challenging. That's another story towards the shoeing. My horse, it wasn't my horse, it was my commander officer horse that I compete with, had no shoes behind.
Mm.
Because he was overreaching and caught himself, so somebody else make a decision to take the shoes off. The day we have to jump, it was so cold and the ground was frozen. So I myself put the shoes back for the hind feet so we can put the studs in.
Mhm.
And then my father came. We had a one practice day, and the next day was competitions, and we won. And I took the shoes off, and that's where I become a farrier per se myself for my own horses, because before I was helping my father shoe horses, hold the leg, trim, take the shoe, basic stuff.
So I'd like to just back up there because I was thinking there's a lot of information you've shared. And I was thinking, number one, the fact that as you said, you had these horses that could come and go. What's interesting from that perspective is I imagine it developed your talent as a rider because you rode a lot of different horses. So you were constantly having to change.
A lot of difficult horses too. A lot of difficult horses.
Mm-hmm.
Because good horses, they're easy to ride, and including my father, he would say, you don't learn anything from good horse. Switching riders was very common practice. Even in a national sport, the trainers believe that at the competition time, putting a good rider with the bad horse and the bad rider with the good horse improves the team score.
Mm-hmm. But I was also thinking from the perspective of just your passion and that having mounts taken away from you, because it's got to be a little bit hard on your heart, quite frankly, because you build a rapport with each horse, and to have it taken away and moving on, it would have had to have given you a certain backbone that the average person wouldn't have, I imagine. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Also, this hardship teaches you to be a little more down to earth,
Mm-hmm.
not to swim against the current, because you just hurt more.
So now take me through the journey then of how did you end up in the US?
When I finished in the Soviet army, by that time, Soviet Union collapsed. Me being in the wrong place, I just didn't return back home. But my parents have to be evacuated. My parents and my grandparents have to be evacuated by Russian soldiers, and my Muslim friends, my father Muslim friends, spending a couple of nights in basements of my Muslim neighbors, my Muslim friends. They helped to evacuate my family in 1990, January 1990.
Wow.
And I stayed in Moscow. I had the tickets to go back home. January 13, 1990. That's where the hell broke loose. I lost grandparents for a moment, for a few days, and then we found them in the other city and be able to bring them to the Moscow. And the second chapter or our lives began.
And so did everybody come to the US?
In fact, nobody came to US except me.
Oh, gracious. That had to be very tough on you.
But yes, of course, not me, my wife as well. But the thing is, we're happy for who we have alive to be able to survive that. And for me, I've lived in Moscow periodically, especially summer times, after school shows, competitions, but I never felt at home. The family was too big to apply for immigrants, for political immigrants. Family are too big and too busy to establish the home and job and all of that. And one of my father's students, he came to America as a political immigrant, and he invited me over as a rider and horses. That's how I came. That's how I came to America. I never applied for help as a political immigrant. I stood up on my feet right away. I had a good coaches who ensured me that I should penny that I made winning some classes and riding some horses, that I start paying taxes even before I got my working permit. I start paying taxes, and that, I believe, helped me when somehow we used to play lottery, international lottery for the green card, and I won it. So it's like 6 years of darkness and then another 6 years of green card, and now I became part of the country. Okay?
Wow.
I don't really have home. This is my home. In fact, I lived here more than anywhere else in the world.
Well, I think you're not alone. I think there's a number of people like you in terms of coming from other countries and the States being an opportunity for them. And so then that feeling that you have of wanting to give back. Tell me a little bit about your journey once you were in the States. And as I said, I found it fascinating with you because of your background and you learning all these different skills. You're very well-rounded. And so you're able to sort of jump from one hat to the next. You're the rider, you're the trainer, you're the farrier. Tell me a little bit about who you worked with first in the States that might have influenced your thinking as far as your approach.
My first job, I found breaking young horses in the fields of Kansas City, Missouri, in the snowing fields of Kansas City, Missouri. Kentucky bred, but like quarter crack, little one leg like this, little
crazy.
Don't want to run, that's was my first job in Kansas City, Missouri, starting the young horses. That's where I learned the English, and that's also make a big on me the effect of word breaking young horses. Did you ever break the horse? Never. And in fact, I mean, to be honest to myself, I never started the horse like from zero. So I had to kind of learn using my dressage techniques and my father's technique and the horsemanship, whatever to call, I always want to let the horse know that I'm a friend, so I'm not the enemy, even though in my riding days, I do have to push the horses to some limits. To me, everything is a limit for the horse, for any horse.
And were those horses race horses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm curious because I don't know that much technically about shoeing. I was wondering, is there a difference in what you do with a racehorse's foot versus a show jumping horse versus a dressage versus an eventer?
In my humble experience, it's what you can do. Unfortunately, even after 4 weeks cycle of the sport horse, sometimes you don't really have a whole lot to work with as far as the foot of the horse. Application can be different depending on the job. Like if it's a dressage horse, maybe different shoes. If I'm not talking about pathologies, I'm just talking about just the plain shoes. Like saying for runner, you have studs at the toe. For the high jumping, you have the studs in the heels. I'm talking about the humans running, and the same application for the Western horses are different. For the race horses different. For the hunters different. For horses that run on the grass. So I'm talking about just the different shoes. But to me, what I have to work with as far as the foot, it doesn't really what I can put it on, but what I have, and that's to me is the most important part. What shape the foot is, and that's the only thing that helped me to be able to have sound horses, really.
And so, sorry, I was going to ask. So, what makes a good foot? Like, what are you looking for as a farrier, as far as a good foot to work with?
I mean, it's simple. If I, for example, talking to the person who never seen the horse's foot before, it's just the amount of the foot. Sometimes even that not enough. The wall, the structure of the foot. There's different parts of the foot. To me, main concern is the health condition of the foot. Of course, you can argue the angles and long term and everything. That's why, in a way, I'm kind of like a dark figure, because I've been lucky enough to be invited to meet with so many different farriers and the veterinarians and all that. And I take that to consideration. I'm continuously adding up to my game, changing, which I believe is a good way. Being a rider and be able to shoe my horse and have the horse sound and perform at the high level, okay, not top level, but close enough, and have a sound horse, allows me to leave the foot to the horse, because shoes application, we definitely influencing the growth, because without the shoe, foot would grow different. It would wear off different if it has a chance, if it has a footing to wear off. If it doesn't, it would still migrate to the less resistance. So the trimming is crucial part. How much you take off, you have to take it off, and you have to rebuild or you don't have enough, like the heels mostly, which very difficult, if ever. Again, basics, leather pads, application. I just recently start changing that as well, because of my colleagues who's been in the business for a very long time, and I always offering my help to the rider, to the farriers that I admire, and watch them work, because they change as well. And the change, again, like Darwin said, through evolution, not the smartest species survive, and neither strongest one is the one that can adapt it to change. And I believe, because of the fooding, weather, like South Florida is there's no other place like South Florida. It's good for alligators, it's good for frogs, mosquitoes, not horses very much. So the fooding, like even horses that come to Wellington from Europe for just 3 months, every shoeing, the feet are changing. You have to go with bigger shoe, you have to trim more smaller, like because of the water, the ocean. We live like 15 minutes, like all East Coast, really. And the moisture in the air, and the ground is soft, and the rain and sun and sweating and all of that, changing the feet dramatically. Like shoeing the horse, and well, in South Florida, even Ocala is different. It's challenging everybody, starting from the grooms to the riders to the owners to the vets to the farriers. All we can do is guess. That's what I'm saying. I continuously changing my game as well, like with helps of pads, for example, the way I'm applying. If it's too much rain, the sand gets built up underneath. What packing material I used the way I use, nobody else really does, unless there is some particular type of pads that combines leather and rubber, like shock absorbing pads. They are made of rubber basically, and the rubber and the horse's foot, my experience, it does not come together very well. The moist stay under, and it's just a matter of time when the horse will abscess. It's a matter of time. I find out if I put the thin leather pad underneath, then the leather absorbs the moist better, and you have a shock absorber and the leather that protects the foot a little bit, like adding up the foot to the horse, giving a little extra layer of the foot. And then you're building up from there. That's my kind of safety net, the leather pad.
And would you say that's really common then in Florida for the horses?
There is many international Olympic riders that have all the horses with Some people, I run into another nonsense that when I add the pad, in fact, 2 months ago, I lost 2 horses because I recommend the pads. Riders didn't want it. They believe their horse is sound enough, And if I recommend, we need it. Just a fact. It's like sometimes adding pads will help the horse to keep the feet clean, and because you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to pick it up. It's clean. I mean, unless magically I pulled out the horse's feet from rocks to sticks, the shaving sticks, it's just, you name it. And the horses be able to even perform with that. That's another crazy part, how much tolerance they have, the horses have. So this is very, very touchy subject to me. I'm always open to discuss. I'm always open to share my experience and suggestions if I've been asked, but it's tough.
And do you run into a lot of ego? Is that the challenge with people, that they have their opinion even though it's not necessarily what they do?
First of all, I try to respect everybody, because you cannot just disregard the person who's the best in the country, who achieved so many things. I always start from that, and I wanted to be honest about it. As far as what I know and what they know, it's always different, because I offer to my riders to check their grooms regularly. Before you hop on the horse, pick up your feet by yourself, or ask the groom pick up the horse's feet and see if they've been cleaned before you get on. We have to listen to the riders too, because they're the one that feels the horse after it's been done, week after it's been done, 4 weeks when it needs to be done. There's the feelings, that's what feedback we're getting from the riders. And if they feel something, they must share. And we all must work together, but not just like, okay, you know what, do this, that's it. No conversation. And because a lot of people will, otherwise you're losing the job. To me, I don't really care very much, because if I have to work hard to keep the relationship going, it's a one-way street, it's going to happen sooner or later. I rather have sooner. I rather open possibility for somebody else who will take my side and open his eyes and look at the horse's feet and listen what I say, or try different things, not just be judgmental. That's what I want riders from, opinion riders, because they feel the horse, and better they are, more feelings they have, more they feel. My goal, older horses, for sure, they feel better even after 3 weeks being shot. I don't have this. I used to have some older horses that needs to be shot every 3 weeks, just not to avoid degree changing, artificial degree change. You just set everything back, trim a little bit, the areas that needed to be treated, and back to work. But 4 weeks, older horses definitely benefit. That's why sometimes we also make a schedule depending on the show. Sometimes we have to break the schedule to get the horse to the important competition freshly done, or 1 week in. That's older horses. That's also, again, I don't want to exclude the veterinarians out of it, but it's mainly the riders. Riders, the one that have that rope from the bell, they're the one that like, I don't feel right. There's something going on. And then we start opening the box.
And so just to go back to when you were saying at 4 weeks versus 3 weeks. So why with an older horse, would they necessarily need it more often? Is it because their foot is growing more quickly, or is
horses quickly? Some horses' feet are just like you've been moisturing them with some stuff, but it's mainly because they grow. It doesn't have to be too much. It just grows. They become longer. I don't go to extremes. I don't want to see red. I don't like red. Red is not the color that I wanted to see, because sometimes you can see red that happened a couple of months ago. I have to see red now. You can see red next time. That would be from your last shoeing. You know what I mean? Your last trim. Like I said, I try to leave a little more food for the horse, a little more. Like same with jumping. When I train the jumpers and they for sale or something, anybody with the qualification, they can jump. My horse is bigger than I jump. That's how I train my horses. They jump with ease. Whatever they jump with ease. I don't overface them. Same thing with the horse's feet. If my horse lost the shoe next day or same day after shoeing, it stays sound on any surface, including gravel or hard ruts or any surface. It's sound.
And that leads me to another question, which is, how does the footing nowadays change what you do as a farrier? Because I'm thinking they've really changed the surfaces in North America. What does that mean for you as a farrier and for the horses in general?
First of all, it's hard. It hardly gives, so which is more stress on the horse. How I deal with it, shoes that we use for this synthetic surface is a little smoother. They're not slippery, but they give that little slide to the horse, because when the horse lands, the mass is still moving. And the joints, the one that had to hold that moving mass when the horse lands, especially front feet, because of the weight. Naturally, horse is unbalanced. We all know that because of the neck. They naturally, most of the sport horses, they are unbalanced, the weight on the front. And that's why grass is the best footing, because it kind of gives a little slide to the horse, which releases the tension. And having for the grass, you want a grippy shoes. You want shoes that are going to grip to the ground. But in this footing, you want a little bit slide. So it's a normal shoes without any modifications. I used one brand and one brand only. I use that because of my colleagues. It's not my invention. Pick that up. I like it. I use different types. It's the same brand, but I carry different types of the shoes of the same brand. But they're basically the same. They already, everything was already built in. You know, the breakover and the smoothness and the nail placement of the nail holes. It's a very good shoe, and that's the only one I really use, the type. So, of course, another big thing is support. People believe oversizing the shoes help the horse, which brings us again to the point of the footing. Longer, bigger shoe you have more leverage and less sink. Like everybody knows, when the horse is injured suspensory, for example, everybody want to make narrow branches so the heel can sink a little bit, so take the pressure off. Why we need to do that if the horse get hurt, and do completely opposite, big, wide support when the horses are healthy? So I strongly believe that you should not oversize the horse's foot. I believe bigger foot, normal shoe, because most of the horses that have huge shoes that's sticking out of the heels, the foot actually small. Heels contracted, run down, and wall is thin because the nails placement, so you don't really need it's like if you wear size 10, would you wear 11? It gives you more support. I mean, we pretty much disadvantage as far as our height and the foot. Athlete shoes, they basically almost like a sock. You just put it, your foot that's what important. You want to make sure your heel is healthy. You want to make sure your toe is healthy. You want to make sure you have that flat-footed arch. You might need some help with that. Some people might need some help with that.
I like the analogy of a human being who's an
Well,
athlete. It makes sense.
like I said, I'm not properly educated farrier. I'm honest about it. That's why most of the time I keep my mouth shut. People like to say something. That's another great thing about shoeing. There's not a one day same, including the same horse. For example, when I do the reset, I might have to change a little bit shape from time to time. It might go from the back to the foot. That's the kind of goal. But from time to time, you still reshaping. Even after I shoe horse for a year, it still might happen. One day you get the more growth, one day you have a less growth. You have to trim depending on you're going to trim in another 4 weeks. That's what makes it so interesting. And I know for a fact requires attention. I had an older horse Saturday. She had all kinds of problems with her feet. She was lame. She had therapeutic shoeing. As far as simple, I changed to simple flip flaps. I love the flip flaps. I have horses jumping National Grand Prix with the flip flaps. I told the owners, I'm a new farrier. Horses will improve. The horse's feet will improve. I guarantee. As soon as horse gonna feel better, it's gonna go crazy in the paddock. It's gonna run. And sure enough, my first couple of shoeings went fine. I'm starting getting happier with the feet. I'm still worried because of the history. Concern, not worry really, but concern, like extra careful, looking one more time, trimming, looking one more time, take a little bit, take it again. So my first couple of months was okay. And then I started become happier with the horse's feet. So she started having nice feet. Management, they feed her too much. She does not need that much. Later on, 2-3 shoeings later, she started getting lame. Like she started really getting lame. And I've seen her running in the paddock. It's not the feet. I hoof test every single time I take the shoe off. I hoof test. I trim. I hoof test. So anyway, another 2 shoeings later, I was trimming Saturday. I start trimming the frog and I can see like really red patches on her frog. And then they told me that she have deflection tendon injuries, like really bad, and nobody could figure out. Fairfield, Connecticut, they had to get involved, and the one leading doctor over there, he found that out. And sure enough, I mean, they were in the barn. I showed them, I'm like, look, if you just, you won't see it. I mean, we don't really have that much lightning around. Some of the farms are really nice. I keep showing people where they have lights on the bottom, on the knee level, on top, on every corner, so you can really see. That's why this is my
We need the glasses.
Yeah, and I mean, she's fine now. The horses go through that period. First, they not really sound. They sound, but not really to run around. Then they start feeling good, and then they start running around. And then they get hurt because of that. And then they start caring for themselves a little bit more and be a little easy on their feet, on their legs. But it's just a story, but the hairs on my head was up, I had goosebumps. I'm looking at it. I don't like to take pictures too much because the thing is private and it's none of everybody's business. I'm not posting this or share. Well, I do share when I have a problem.
Yes, so I had 2 questions based on what you had said. One was when you were talking about that there's some horses where you absolutely are trying to time the shoeing for a special event. Would you find that horses are different in how they respond? Are there some horses that need a couple of days to sort of settle into a shoe? Or are there others that right away?
That's again. I mean, I've shot horses with some farriers that they are here, horse here, the same way we are talking right now, except cameras and the x-ray machines. And after literally 2-3 rasping of the foot, re-x-ray, sending to New York to the vet on the other end, receiving, looking, influencing further, right side, left side, back, forward. As far as streaming, it should not. Doesn't matter. Like 2 months ago, I got the new horses and I start shoeing when they were 2 weeks in because shoes falling off. feet are cracking around the nails and overgrowing the shoe. They were like 2 weeks in. And I reshaped the shoes. I got my shoe. I took old ones off. I clean everything. What's there as a not helping the horse, including just keeping bacteria in. So I had to clean everything, reshape, take my new shoes, different sizes, my shoes, different shapes, and start shoeing when the horses was 2 weeks in. Nobody was happy, not the rider, not the owners, because the money, they have to pay double or whatever. I reasonable as much as I can. Overall, it's what you're working with.
Mm-hmm. And would you recommend hot shoeing over cold shoeing, or when would each apply?
Everything has its own reasons. Hot shoeing is when you shape hot shoe. I shoe cold. I don't shoe hot. I don't shape hot. It's harder on me. I have really heavy hammers. I used to feel shame because I cannot shape hot like everybody else. But for me, accuracy is more important. It takes me 10 times longer than hot shoeing, but I fit the shoe exactly the way the foot is, a little bit bigger. Exactly. So I trim the foot and that's it. I don't change the foot anymore. I shape the shoe to it, cold. Another thing about hot shoeing is burning the foot. I start using that practice. I either shape the shoe, then I heat up and burn a little bit to make the feet a little bit harder, to kill some bacteria in, get the foot a little bit harder, and drive the nails in. Or even the frog areas where it's eaten by bacteria. So when you burn the foot, it becomes a little bit more rubberish, a little bit stronger. It's almost the easiest way. It's like a blistering kind of thing, except it's a foot. Some of the horses, I wanted to do it, but I can't. They're so scared of fire and burning and flame and smoke that I can't do it. I need help of a couple of people to hold the horse for me just to burn it. Sometimes I let the horse relax, I don't do that, especially young horses. And then eventually they would let me do it. But that's what I use the heat for. I have a Ford. If I need to change the shoe dramatically, if I need to add the clip somewhere else, then of course the fire is the hell. Overall, that is basically different between hot shoeing, cold shoeing. You really still need to trim the foot. Plus, when you shape hot, your trimming is very limited because you still have to burn. So you take the foot away more and more and more. You trim and then you burn, and then you clean after burning, then put the shoe on. You really need to know what you're doing. And all we do, take away more, and we cannot put it back. One time, and your heels become like that.
Well, and that was going to lead me into another question, which is, what about going barefoot?
Depends what you want from the horse. Depends what footing around you. If everywhere asphalt, you're not going to get more than a couple of weeks, and then it's going to be late. If you would like to go on the trails, Rocky, New York, some mountains and stuff, you're going to have bruises, and the horses will be lame. I have horses that competing barefoot up to Grand Prix level, but usually it happens when they come to me after injuries. And because long-term injuries, the owners decided you take the shoes off. One of the grades of sport, they would take the shoes off right after Hampton's finals. And the shoes go back in Wellington after 2-3 months every year. Okay, of course, you have some horses that need to continue jumping indoors and stuff. So you keep them all. They have a different type for the break until the nail holes disappear, and then you have new foot. And some horses, when they injure, they take the shoes off, and then they starting to go back to work. Those horses I visit every 2 weeks. Just clean it up, rasp it around a little bit, just keep it nice and tidy, and not really a whole lot to do anyway because they wearing them out. But it takes time to rebuild the foot. It's not like, okay, you take the shoes off and next day go and push.
So that would be something you would recommend, though, a little break potentially?
Everybody do. For example, Soviet riding school came from centuries ago. All over the world, people will come and train the horses in Russia, and the Soviet Union built on that. One of the things I read in the book, my father's book, from 18th centuries is when you start a young horse, for example, you bring riding horse, you bring a 2.5, 3 years old from the field, fall to the indoor. Then you have fall and winter to start the horse. Next spring, back to the field. Because it doesn't matter how good you are, it's a stress for the horse. By sending horse back to the field, stress goes away. Spring and summer, horse outside, enjoying itself, back to nature. And then following fall, you bring it back, and the riding career starts until they would have some breaks. But who's doing it? Everybody know. When you start talking about it, everybody know, but everybody have plans for the horses before it's even born. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's good thing to do. Who can afford it? Like myself, when I used to ride with one of the best and I tried to follow, I took the shoes off. It took me a long time to put them back on because it took me a long time accept the fact that it's not perfect. Because if I see a little crack, I touch the rasp. I clean a little bit more. I'm looking at it. Okay, let's have one more week. I end up start jumping pre-circuit without shoes. Small classes. I mean, it's not a big deal.
So are there one or two things you could recommend that riders do to help their horses' feet that they could be doing on a regular basis?
Feet, and there's products that you have to apply certain way. I always say to people, the edge of the foot where the nails are, you want that part as hard as rock because that's the end, that's where the nails are, that's the edge that keeps it all together. What you want to lubricate or medicate or using some vitamin stuff, it's a coronary band. It's even in the market. They have this little bands with the Velcro attached to the coronary band. So you soak them into whatever the product you want and you put them on and they gradually keeping that coronary belt rebuilding for the new growth, new foot. Very difficult to do. One barn, they had so much grease. This is bad. You ruin the horse's feet. Oh, we don't have a bacteria. I'm like, but you don't have a foot either. I can crumble the foot with my fingernail. Come on. You cannot say use softener. Maybe now you need the softener. No rain, everything is dry, feet are dry, they stop losing flexibility. Of course you need softener. But then when it's in rains and wet and dirt and everything, then you need to harden. So you have to balance. But in my experience, the only stuff that I use myself, I recommend, and smart people that listen, they use is farrier barrier. It's called farrier barrier. You can apply from skin to foot, inside, outside, bottom, frog. It benefits everything. Whatever it have, after using it for a few weeks, you get the growth like you never seen before. For that, horse's feet has to be clean. When you apply that, they have to be dry. It's things that requires little extra effort.
Right, attention to detail.
We know, because if you just hose the horse down and right away apply, it doesn't work. Or if you apply that and go riding, it comes off. The whole material is gone. It's the same like one vet long time ago told me, the best thing you can do for the horse's back, stop washing with cold water. Spasms, the muscle spasm. It's the hottest place on the whole body. Saddle pad, and us. This is the most sensitive area on the horse. When you give the horse to the groom, you have to make sure you try on yourself. Cold shower after exercising, on the back muscle when you have to carry.
No, that makes perfect sense.
It's a very basic thing. To me, it's very basic things. And overall, you need to have an idea of what you're looking for. You have to educate yourself. One thing I always say, I'd love to talk to you guys, but not when I'm working. I'm losing. I have to stay focused with what I do. And your questions, we have to find the time to talk about. I wanted to talk. I wanted to listen to you. But when I work, I want to work. I want to concentrate. If you want to watch, no problem. If you want to be involved, most of my riders that into this, they have aprons. I give my old tools to them. So they handy and they spend the time with me, help me as an apprentice. Why I've been welcomed into so many different clans, because you don't need to tell me what to do. I'm always with the broom. I would wait until you leave to clean. I know what tool is next. I don't really need you to tell me what to do. I'm here. You tell me, because some guys, when they get stressed, they like, do something. Don't do anything. Don't touch or touch. Like this kind of. But I don't take this personal, and I'll do whatever it takes, including entertain you to make you relax. Sometimes again, sometimes they forget things because I'm around, but it's only temporary.
I love that you are just constantly a student of learning.
The day you say I got it, wait to see what happens. Wait to see what the universe throw in your lap.
Well, and the other question I had along the lines of what you could do for your horse is I wondered what your take was on packing the feet. Are you a fan of packing the feet? I've seen some trainers that pack the feet after a weekend of jumping, and I just wondered, do you think there's a real benefit to that?
First of all, depends what you're packing with. This hard stuff, it's very good. It's minerals. Use the clayster, the ground to pack. If it doesn't hurt, great. To me, it's a little bit like wrapping the legs. I never wrap the legs. Because if you start, you have to do it all the time. And then when you do it all the time, you can miss some things. Horses doesn't get hurt all of a sudden. If the horse's legs are not wrapped and something happened, next day you'll see it. But if they would be under wrap, you won't see it. You go out, horse sound, you push, and then it breaks. Usually, more likely you'll have signs. This green product, it's very good for the feet. I mean, they all only benefit from it. Again, if you have a good foot, that there's no indications of abuse or stress or injuries without that too.
Fair enough.
You want a good foot. I never see the farrier say, "Oh, I have too much foot to work with." Never. They might say, "Oh, too long. The toe is too long." But it depends what angle you're looking for. If you're looking at the foot from the side, then yeah, the toe might be long. But if you're looking from the front and you see the whole foot, it doesn't look too long to me. It's normal. There's red lines when you're not supposed to cross or supposed to have a wall. Wall is the one that holds the whole horse. So if you start breaking pieces, you're losing that round. Whoever designed the shoes, they designed them for a reason. If they would think they need the square toe, they would design the square toe. But yet, square toe is a therapeutic shoe with the horse that already done doing things. It's just to keep it alive. Because if not the foot, horse can die from the foot, from the problem in the foot, because we really have literally this much between the ground and blood vessels. This much. You think that's enough for 1,000 pounds?
I think people forget the size of these horses.
This much. That's what at the end of my knife.
Wow. You're really putting it in perspective.
It's very easy. If you see the horses when they just born, that's when it all starts. Because when the horse is born, usually they're going to see the farrier. Maybe they're like 6 months old, yearling. Somebody comes to trial to want to buy it or something. That's when they start seeing the farriers, except our race industry. That's another story. Or again, sick horses, sick babies with the weak legs, with the crooked feet. That's abnormalities. This is whole other topic. If you ask me to do something about it, I mean, I can trim, I can still benefit to the horse. One of my top clients is the ponies. Ponies and donkeys, not so much because different type of food, but the ponies, that's why so many pony founded. Because they feed, they don't have enough mass to push through the foot. So
Yes.
the wall separates and the bone, it's the most satisfying for me so far, because you can see in a couple of trimmings, you can see when they start having their feet back, they start playing and they start happy to see you, literally lifting their feet up for you. It's part is very, very
Rewarding.
Worth to get up in the morning. So, I mean, I crawl on my knees. I bought special small nippers that I can use one hand. Some of them try to bite me and kick me, they little, but they still feisty because they lose trust into the farriers. If they see one ever, if anybody pick them feet up ever, this is one of my soft spots, ponies.
Well, I was going to ask, those were going to be my last two questions. One is, what is your favorite thing of what you do day to day? And the other question is, what is on the horizon for you that you'd really like to experience?
Well, I retired my horse last year. I want a horse, but I want a good horse, and the horse that goes to the program. It has to go to one of my riders because I work a lot, I travel a lot. It's been a time when I start. The best time was coronavirus. That's when I ride every day, first thing riding, nobody showing, so I go ride my horse. But when it's show time, I cannot ride in the morning. I only walk for 20 minutes. I mean, I can't ride for like 20 minutes and carry on. It's just not in it. And so I hope, I have offers. Today I work with 2 horses, riding and teaching, and I have a couple of young ones people ask me to help with, and I can ride anytime I want, really. Riding my own, go back to the ring, shave my beard and go back to the ring. That's the horizon. My favorite thing, I live dream as far as doing it, because one said, if you love your job, you never work day. Like my working days is actually my favorite time, because as soon as you have a day off, there's so much to do, paperwork, taxes. Got a letter from IRS. The health, this insurance department, the health insurance. Anyway, so that's why I always love to shoot a horse, because more you do, better you are. So I'm kind of like eager every day, to go see horses and start. And I don't shoot a lot of horses a day. I shoot maybe 3, 4 max. When my son helps me, maybe we can do 5 or 4 easily, but I don't shoot more than that. I'm being joked at, like, oh, this is not a professional. You're not a professional. I don't mind being amateur. William Steinkraus was amateur. Blinky, he was an amateur. Yet he was one of the best horsemen athletes in the world.
Well, Andre, I really want to say thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your story with our listeners. I think you've had a very interesting life, and I'm quite curious to see where this takes you in the future.
Thank you. It's honored just to participate, and I'm here pushing. Yes, that probably, like I said, the best part about it tomorrow. What's what brings tomorrow. That's who we are, what we after. And myself, every person that around the horse, pay attention, like, be with the horse. When you're around the horse, be with the horse. To think about the horse when you leave the horse, that's what makes great. That's what makes great. But at least to be with the horse when you're with the horse, that's good enough for the horse. Like, yeah, open the door. Let's go. Open up. Come here. Let's go. That's the attitude. I said this a lot. Horse, it's not what we do, nailing, injecting, or wrapping, or what. Horse have to want it to be happy.
I think that's a great message. And if you would like to learn more about the podcast and upcoming guests, please follow me at Horse Tales with Cat on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you.